Hi everyone, my name is Nivedita. I'm the founder of Art Forward. We are starting our second session for the second day of the AF Weekender. It's called India Through the Ages, the story of Matchbox Art. And it's a show and tell workshop that will be conducted by Shreya Katuri. And she's going to take us through the cultural discovery of the Indian matchbox, the art on these matchboxes, and her journey of collecting and discovering the history behind these illustrations. This is an interactive session, and we encourage you to gather a couple of matchboxes in your homes, and you can share these later during her workshop. Thank you so much, Shreya, for making time for us and for doing this. We're very excited to explore matchbox art with you. A short intro to Shreya. A full-time creative thinker and a part-time advocate of passion projects, Shreya believes in constantly exploring new ideas by seeking inspiration in art and culture. Her Instagram, Art on a Box, is a manifestation of all of the above and more. And now I'm going to hand this over to Muskan from our team to take it over. Thanks again, Shreya, for joining us and doing this.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining us for day 2 of Weekender for our second workshop titled India Through the Ages, the story of Matchbox Art with Shreya Katuri, or as some of you all know her, Art on a Box. Thank you for joining us, Shreya. We can't wait for you to show us your collection of illustrious matchboxes and take us to the history of matchbox art and design in India. As with most of the sessions, we will have a question and answer session at the end of the workshop and an exciting show and tell. So if you have any matchboxes lying around at home, we hope you keep them handy. We will ask you to raise your hands and share your matchboxes with us and ask Shreya any questions or insights that you may have had during the session. Now I will hand over the microphone to you, Shreya.
Thank you, Muskan. Thank you, Nivedita. That was a wonderful introduction, and I'm so excited to be doing this workshop. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through my research of 5 to 6 years. And I'm going to start sharing my screen. I've made a small presentation of sorts, which has different slides pertaining to different themes and topics, in which I've displayed my matchboxes. So let me start off with that. So yeah, as you all know, I've been running an account on Instagram since 2014. But the fun part over here is that, and how it basically started was that it wasn't just like a random Instagram account that I started. It started from a dissertation that I attempted to write, and I like to believe I successfully cracked it in the last year of my undergrad. The first picture that you actually see on the left is a picture of my dissertation. So that's actually a picture, like the cover picture of my dissertation. And I decided to study matchbox labels and boxes, and the icons and symbols that we often see on the matchboxes, by studying it in terms of popular culture. And again, I think many times I've actually been asked, how did you go about deciding on this as a topic? And honestly, I've never had like a very fun story to it. It was literally just me spotting matchboxes on the road, and I was like, why don't I just study it? Because I did my undergrad in journalism, and honestly, at the end of this 5 to 6, at the end of this 3 to 4 years, I just didn't feel like studying your broadcast or radio, and I was like, let's try studying matchboxes. And obviously it's like a huge topic if you actually think about it from an art, if you look at it from just like an art standpoint, or just like a production standpoint, there are like so many factors to it. But I decided to study it by dissecting it into 3 different domains, those being religion, nation, and gender in India. So all the research that also goes on the account, if you've had the chance to actually visit the account, you'll see that many of the posts have these long captions, and I can assure you that all those captions have actually been based out of like proper research that I've done. And I spent about a year researching them. So that's actually the story behind Art in a Box, and it got acknowledged really well in college. And I think after a year and a half of working on it, I start off like I kind of started, missing working on it. And I was like, why don't I take it on Instagram? So I took it on Instagram, and that's how I gave it a name called Art in a Box. And the third picture is a picture of me with my Indian matchboxes scattered on a floor, trying to make posts. I've gotten better in terms of just like organizing them, but there's a lot more that needs to be done. And yeah, the last picture is basically, I found a bucket of matchboxes in a flea market in Boston in, I think, 2018. This was my Christmas gift to myself, but I think it serves as a good reminder, because I feel like my collection has just been increasing since then, since 2014 or since 2013 when I started my research. So yeah, that's Art in a Box and my research in a nutshell. And I'll be glad to take in more questions eventually towards the end of the session. But that's Art in a Box, and I'm hoping to make an online archive, like an online portal of sorts. So you should be seeing a few more exciting updates in the next 30 days. So that's Art in a Box, and that's me. And I'll start off again by just briefly telling you about how I think grateful and fortunate I've been. Just to take like all these matchboxes. I think there was a time when I started off with just like picking matchboxes off the road and flicking them. And I consider myself lucky because I've always got like the best backdrops. And there have also been times where I've just carried matchboxes to my travels and again, just flick them against like these amazing backdrops that you see. The first one is like a really old picture. It's from 2014. This is in Vizag. The second one, I feel like many people like to believe that the second one is from Jaipur or somewhere in Rajasthan, but it's actually in Delhi. And again, it's just like timing. I got this matchbox on the road and I picked it up, and the camel was right in front of me. And it just made for such a good frame. The third one is actually from Sri Lanka. It's probably like the yeah, makes me sad right now. And also, like, I just consciously wanted to put out a travel slide out there. Only reason being that we haven't been able to do that in a long time. But yeah, Sri Lanka was the last place I visited in 2020, Jan 2020. This was a picture from there. And I noticed there's another lighthouse. That's a coincidence. And then the last picture is a picture from Udaipur. One of the most liked pictures, to be quite honest, on Instagram from my feed, and I feel like the backdrop again does the trick for me. But yeah, I think I've had the chance to travel also, and like find so many matchboxes in all my travels, and it makes for a pretty picture. And I've had like lots of fun doing this the past, I think, 6 to 7 years now, and hoping for borders to reopen so that I can like click more kinds of pictures again, not just restrict myself to this style. But yeah, and I think something. So, when I actually started doing my research, what I realized was that I will have to, trace it back to the history, because I personally, I mean, there are many collectors out there who have like a collection of at least a lakh or more in terms of boxes. I honestly don't consider myself a collector as yet, because I only have around like 4,000 to 5,000 boxes, but I know people who have boxes in lakhs. And at the time of my research, I didn't have access to all these boxes and labels. And the only boxes that I had were like the contemporary ones. So the ones that, you might find at home, or probably you go to, your local Kirana store, or you go, or just, you find them on the road or whatever. I mean, that's literally also how how I pick my matchboxes. I find something on the road, a friend finds something on the road, they just pick it up and they get it for me. So it's literally that. But once I actually started analyzing them, I realized that I'll have to like really go back into, you know, the history part of it, because that's where you know, the ideas of like design on a box and like literally like art on the matchbox, like that's where the ideas were being defined and designed for like future designers. So I won't go much into the history, but these two pictures are it's actually a part of a collection that was gifted to me from a friend's grandfather. So this is literally from the pre-independence period. These again are only vintage Indian labels. But just trying, like, you know, if you ask me to give you like a global sort of a perspective, match labels. So basically, labels on boxes, they've had like different meanings associated with themselves over the past few years. Like in the US, you had pubs and restaurants putting their pictures or putting their ads on boxes. In Europe, I don't have access to those boxes, but I've known that people in the past have printed like fables and stories on it. And initially, many of the European countries like Sweden and, you know, like Great Britain and Austria, they, and even Japan, they had like an abundance of raw materials, and they gradually acquired a domestic presence in India, and they set up factories in India. So this was around, and I think in 1920s, they also set up Wimco. You might have seen Wimco as a brand here and there, but the Swedes basically set this up in India. And gradually, local production increased over the years during the war years. But it was also during this time that people in Shivkasi in Tamil Nadu were being leveraged a lot. And it wasn't just the people, because, you know, I mean, you know, you're getting like free labor, not free labor, you're getting cheap labor, and also the landscape, the dry landscape, and the climatic conditions were working in their favor. And I think after, you know, all those factories were set up, gradually India also decided to go that route, and start setting up their own factories. And again, with like government intervention and tax subsidies, etc., Indian factories started with their own identities, and they started developing their own labels and illustrations, which is what you see over here. And these are just like a few examples that you see of like Indian factories producing their labels. But I would also like to show you another. So I got out like a picture from the same collection, which I like to believe is probably something that was, you know, like probably like the design aesthetic was decided by one of the, you know, European factory owners. So again, I think there's been like a lot of in terms of just like transition in terms of design, there's been like a lot of like they have evolved. But yeah, these are just a few examples, and how and this is like a brief you know, idea into the history of Indian matchboxes and labels. And after that, so like, you know, I obviously trace the history of these matchboxes and labels, but like if you want to talk about how these symbols are actually defined on matchboxes, so if you again look at look at the matchboxes in your homes or like anywhere else, you'll see that there are like different kinds of symbols that you know, like the flag, or you know, tiger or Taj Mahal, or you'll see like animals, like the different themes that exist out there. So they're going to be animals, they're going to be daily objects, they're going to be monuments, but you can't possibly study all those themes. So nation is something that I consciously wanted to study. And there's been from what I inferred, I understood that there has been a construction of a national identity, wherein certain symbols have come to denote a sense of pride and respect for the country. So, again, if you see the Indian flag on the left side, it's definitely evolved in terms of design as compared to the Indian flag that I showed you in the previous slide. And Bharat Mata was also actually one of the symbols that really stood out when it came to, carving out a national identity. And I've got a book. So again, when I was like trying to research, there was a dearth of literature out there for me to even like refer to and understand how is a national identity being carved out. But I think we me and my mentor had to like leverage certain theories like textual analysis or like certain just like very specific articles to get a deeper understanding into how this was being defined. So, and naturally this took like a very qualitative approach. This is a book called Light of India, which I refer to. I'll be happy to like share all the sources with you post this session if you're interested in knowing more about it. But I connected with this author, Warren Dodds, and he basically had he has access to many of these Indian labels, which he happened to buy from somewhere. And his book actually has a very good collection of labels related to Bharat Mata. So if you can see my screen right now, there's a bit of a glare over here, but different designs.
Yeah, Shreya, can you just lift it a bit up so that the audience.
So, you see like a cartographic representation, but Bharat Mata was being seen as a national icon a lot during the struggle. And that's what I realized, that was the start of how the national identity was being defined. And she became a symbol of independence, right? Fighting for freedom and clad in a sari and accompanied by a lion, or there were some labels also in which she was like accompanied by a tiger. But again, tiger, tiger is like a national animal. You'll also find many boxes where you have like symbols of peacocks or like, different designs of like a lotus. And it is a very common practice to have all these symbols on matchboxes. And she's like always holding the national flag in her hand. But soon what happened was that the cartographic representations of her or just her as an icon disappeared with time. And we started seeing symbols of like development or like modernization. I don't have labels with me right now, and I know there are like a few sources out there. If you just do like a random Google search, you'll see vintage labels of just like transistors or like radios on them, or just like TV sets or even table fans, which were very symbolic of development and progress in that, in those times. And I think like you see Taj Mahal over here, which gives you like a sense of pride. You'll also see different boxes with like Red Fort, Charminar, Howrah Bridge. So that's also like a very popular, like a very common pattern that you will find on these boxes, and they've been extensively used. And they do denote like national and historical, just like significance. And like I mentioned, you'll find peacocks, you'll find tigers, you'll find lotus on it. And these are all symbols of like national pride. And they've over the years become, or they have become integral to one's national identity. And that's also just like how we've been taught over the years. And you see that being reflected on these matchboxes as well. So yeah, in a nutshell, again, this is how I perceived nationalism on a matchbox, and how over the years, probably in the initial few years, you saw Bharat Mata on calendars, you saw her probably on like, soap packaging, and you also saw her on matchboxes. But over the years, with like, the freedom struggle and like other policies coming into place, just development happening, they started including other sorts of symbols and icons. And these were a few examples of how national identity was being defined. So, and so the other domain which I studied was religion on a matchbox. I do feel like there's a very thin line. This is what I personally feel, that there's a very thin line between like the idea and the concept of nationalism and religion on a matchbox. But from what I realized is from the research that there was like a dominant religious identity that was being defined through these boxes. So, and it only, it associated itself with one religion, and which basically it naturally excluded the other religions. And it's more of, Hinduism, that is you more of Hinduism and like symbols related to Hinduism that is propagated on these labels and matchboxes. And that's exactly what you end up seeing even on these boxes over here. So the idea was to understand the underlying narrative over here. And the Bharat Mata example again, she is essentially like a manifestation of goddess figures, right? Like Durga or Lakshmi or like even Saraswati. So if you actually start looking at those symbols and like connecting the idea of nation and the idea of religion together, you'll see a pattern over here. And just to give you like an example, like these are all boxes that I own, and I till date do not have a matchbox which has anything that is going to remind me of Christianity or even Islam, or any of the other religions, or like even I mean, there is another collector of whom I'm aware. His name's Matt Lee. You can actually like search him up on Google. He has also displayed like a set of matchboxes on his personal website, and he owns a matchbox with I think a laughing Buddha on it. As well as like I think another matchbox with just Lord Buddha, but I've never come across a matchbox like that. So not saying that they matchboxes with symbols from like other religions don't exist, but that's definitely the minority over there. And again, just give me a second. Yeah, just adjusting my screen over here. You also see Nandi over here, and Nandi basically has been a part of sacred imagery, right? And she's been a part of Hindu religion, and she served as a mount to Lord Shiva. And you might have spotted Nandi across several temples in India. And apart from that, there's also, I'm not really sure if you've ever had the chance, but you'll see multiple boxes with just like a cow on it. And yeah, and the cow's always been like a symbol of abundance, and is perceived to be a goddess in India, right? So even if it's not, I mean, you'll find symbols like the tilak, or you'll find symbols like diyas and deepas, or even like shanks on matchboxes. But at the same time, you're also going to find gods and goddesses, like you see Ganesh on the left side. Then probably like you'll find a flute, which is the second picture over here, which kind of symbolizes Krishna. And you're also going to find many boxes that I can assure you of, like many boxes with just cows on it, which again is very symbolic of like abundance, and again the cows association with Krishna. And Nandi is also like a very common illustration that I found. And that's why I always say that I think nationalism as a concept and religion, there's a very thin line between them. So even when I was trying to study both of them independently, I couldn't, in all honesty, because both of them end up being tied to each other end of the day. Yeah, and again, these two are exceptions. Like I said, I don't own boxes with like Lord Buddha on it, or but the one label, this one label that you see on the right, that's basically I haven't come across any label that's anything like closely related to Christianity. But this is the one label that I have, and I'm very proud of owning it. And I think similarly, like on the left, um, something that had really that I'd noticed, and I was like really sad when I was, going through my research, was that I'd always seen like male gods on boxes, but I'd never seen female goddesses. There are labels and boxes out there which have Lakshmi, Saraswati, etc., etc., but I've always seen a Ganesh or a Krishna on boxes. But this was this one label that really stood out, and it's just like so fierce, and it's so bold in its color and design and aesthetic. And I decided to put it over here. I don't own this label, but I found it online, and if you actually like look it up, you'll and put in Chakkamma as a keyword on Google, you're going to find like several results. Probably one day I'll get a hold of this, but yeah, there are exceptions. But then again, there is like a certain dominant narrative that always is propagated through these icons and symbols on matchboxes. And that was what I realized while researching that, and that there is a dominant narrative which is being designed. And why is it being designed? So yeah, that's Religion and Nation, and a few exceptions that you see on the slide right now. Then my favorite part, the gender part to it. So how are like gender relations structured in the society, and how are those relations being defined on matchboxes? How have they been portrayed across themes, like in terms of themes? Like if you look on the current set of matchboxes over here, by themes I basically mean like career, like you see a farmer over here. They could have also portrayed a woman as a farmer, but they chose to go with a man over here. Or, and again, a man being portrayed as a doctor, or even a cyclist being portrayed as a winner over here. But at the same time, see, you have like doctors and kisans over here, and even if it's to do with a matchbox that calls a person a winner, why is it that there are ideas of ambition or just pride or like careers being defined to a certain gender in the society? And again, the from like the little research that I had done, I saw like a matchbox of Rani Lakshmi Bai, and that was just like one matchbox. And I'd seen several matchboxes with like Chandrasekhar Azad and Subhash Chandra Bose and Mahatma Gandhi. So the ratio was always like 1:3 or 1:5 or 1:6. I don't have access to those matchboxes, but it's just like the whole idea of how bravery and courage was being defined by just one gender. And like even in this case, how just like men are being defined as breadwinners in the society. So there is that dominant patriarchal belief that only they are capable of a career, and having professions which denote or like which are symbolic of success and ambition. So it limits women to the idea of being a homemaker, and like the idea of a career-driven woman is often debunked in these boxes. So even like if you look at the matchbox, the third matchbox on the screen, women are majority of the times portrayed as brides or dulhans, and the idea is that women should be they should look desirable, where you know like she's like dressed in jewelry and she has rosy cheeks, and she's always like lighting diyas and lamps, and that's just like the general narrative. That's how it usually flows. I will also just refer to the book again because I do have Warren did post uh, pictures of these vintage labels that he had access to. which I thought was very interesting because I don't own those vintage labels. But it also gave me a lot of clarity, because when I was kind of backtracking to the history part of it, it all made sense to me. And how it's how that the narrative hasn't essentially changed. I'm just going to pull out the book again. See. So yeah, that's been the general narrative when it comes to women being portrayed on matchboxes. And I brought out this other box, which is again from my collection. I was planning to show it later, but it's called Ladli. And it's really interesting to me because there are, so apart from just like women and men being portrayed on matchboxes, you'll also see many baby figures on matchboxes. But something interesting that I noticed was that there were like 2 to 3 matchboxes with baby boys on them, but the baby boys were like dressed as cricketers or scientists, or probably just like a normal picture of a baby, but like with the word champion written above it, which is like so different if you actually like compare it with this matchbox, because you just have like a picture of like this cute baby over here, and the word ladly below it. And what I thought was interesting was that a word like champion, or scientist, or even teacher was never being associated with these baby figures on matchboxes. So yeah, that's what I took out of gender from the collection that I had. But at the same time, I like to have fun with these boxes. And if you look at the image on the left, that is not an Indian matchbox, but that matchbox is from my US collection. And I have never seen an Indian matchbox which is this bold. I just thought it'd be fun to include it over here, because we have seen pin-up posters, probably in childhood, or like if you go to certain markets, you'll find them pin-up posters of just like models, or even like movie celebrities. But those pin-up posters, like that aesthetic, has never been transferred onto a matchbox, which is at least in like the Indian setup, or the Indian boxes, which is very interesting, because if you see like Australian matchboxes or American matchboxes, they go a bit bold. And the image on the right is honestly just me having fun. That was when Section 377 got passed, and I was like, there's no LGBTQI representation on matchboxes, so I'll try doing something. So yeah, and I think that's something that I really enjoy doing, even through the posts, that it's fun to actually sit and deconstruct the meanings that these symbols and icons hold, but at the same time you also should be questioning them. And I'm not a designer, but I'd love to probably like collaborate with someone to make new kind of imagery on these boxes. So this slide is basically just me having fun. And yeah, brands. I think this is everyone's favorite, to be quite honest, because we all like, imagine just like walking down the road and then you finding like a Chota Beam matchbox. I remember I was so excited when I found this matchbox on the road. It was outside my college next to a tea stall. But yeah, I think post 1990s, when the globalization and liberalization, related reforms and just like policies started to kick in, various media corporations were expanding their presence in India. And like you see Apple on the left side, Air India, and then Jurassic Park and Chota Beam. And which is interesting, because I want you to draw a comparison between this and this vintage label that I have. You see this one, Jyoti brand lungi. So, it's basically a brand, right? Essentially, from, again, this is during the national struggle or pre-independence period. And this is basically how like even brands have evolved on matchboxes. We started off by probably actually promoting like, you know, local brands and homegrown brands, which I think is so cool. But then with like liberalization and just like globalization policies kicking in, we decided to get like Apple and you know, I've seen like a Microsoft desktop also on a Matchbox, and then Chota Beam, and I also have another one which I got just for this. It's the Kingfisher Matchbox. So yeah, like it's a lot of fun just you know, keeping a track of all these logos on Matchboxes. And I found another one. Sorry, I just want to share this. This is again similar to the Lungi brand, but this is Everest brand. I don't exactly know what this is about, but it's so interesting because like all these labels, like all these vintage labels have been illustrated, you know, probably by designers. But now if you see like all these are like digitally manipulated and designed and then transferred onto these boxes. So I think brands and logos on these boxes, it's very interesting to trace their pattern and how the definitions have changed over time. But yeah, I think if you actually ask me, it's something that I got asked recently. The differences between like Indian brands and logos and probably like foreign brands and logos. And you know, one stark difference is that in the US, I'll go on to the next slide. In the US, if you see the picture on the right, it says Red Coach Grill. What I've noticed is that Americans, probably this is again from the 20s or even the 30s, they used to use matchboxes to promote their bars and restaurants. And this is something that has still been happening. Like even right now, about 2 years back, you know, I've got access to these American matchboxes, but those matchboxes literally came to me only from bars and restaurants. And the only two ways I actually got matchboxes in the US were from, one was from the bars and restaurants, and secondly from like vintage markets. So there's no in between, and which is what I think makes Indian boxes very exciting, because you know, you have like symbols and icons of like Chota Beam and just like Kingfisher and Air India. Uh, and you don't have pictures of like, you know, your bars or restaurants on matchboxes. That's another topic in itself, because I do feel like 2 to 3 very cool bars and cafes have started developing their own boxes, and I've identified a few. But if you talk about it from just like a general narrative point of view, like in US, just matchboxes, like bars and restaurants on matchboxes, using it as a way to promote their brand is a lot more as compared to India. And the picture on the left is basically a vintage label which was sent to me on Art in a Box, and someone from Gujarat actually reached out to me saying that this symbol still exists and it belongs to the royal family right now. If you actually happen to go to the post, you can read more about it. Someone from, I think, some account called Gujarat Heritage commented on it. So that was very interesting to notice. And I just wanted to, you know, sort of draw a parallel, because that's a vintage Indian label on the left, and that's a vintage American label on the right. Yeah, and I think that's basically how I studied you know, the idea of nationalism, religion and gender and India. And it's been fun from a research point of view, but I feel like there's so much more just like left to study and research. And I just studied it from like a sociology, like a sociological perspective. But I just noticed on Instagram a few days back that there was someone studying, you know, typography on matchboxes. So that's like another thing that you can look into. Again, I didn't have the chance to go down to Shiv Kasi, but just like getting to know more about our children still being employed over there, you know, for this production, and how are the working conditions right now? How have the designs actually probably changed over the past 5 years? Because I started researching this in like 2013. But I feel like I've myself just seen like you have seen like certain symbols being produced a lot more as compared to symbols that were produced like 7 years back. So there's like tons of scope out there, and I've just done like a limited part to it. But I think um like through Box, I've just like happened to connect with the community who are also like just design enthusiasts, and have given me the chance to collaborate with them, which is so cool because I've gotten to know such amazing and talented graphic designers and photographers and creators. Like the first picture that you see on the left is a poster that I collaborated with an artist named Shantanu Suman for India Nama, which is an annual art festival that is held. You can actually access the full poster on my Facebook page or even on Instagram if you want to, get a closer look into it. But that was fun because I didn't think that after starting doing like a bit of research, I'll probably end up collaborating with someone through Instagram, and the poster will be exhibited in London or New York or Bombay or Mumbai or Delhi. So that was fun. I'm really grateful to have collaborated with them. The second picture that you see is, again, I've made a post out of it on the profile, but this was very heartwarming because someone from Pune reached out to me saying that this was her daughter's collection and she wanted me to have it, and because she didn't know what to do with it after like a few years, and she started an NGO in her daughter's name, but she wanted someone to take care of this collection because there was no one to take care of this collection. So it's just heartwarming to see that you can also like foster these relationships with people that you've never met in person, but just through Instagram. And I think that's also one of the reasons why I love Instagram so much, because it's such an exciting community out there. It's always like curious to learn more and about matchboxes. I mean, who would have thought? And the third picture out there is by this, I think one of the most exciting, it was like very exciting to be gifted a matchbox by Paperheads. You should check out this Instagram account, this brand called Paperheads. They basically illustrated me on a matchbox and sent this matchbox to me. And I thought that was really cute because I never thought that someone would illustrate me on a matchbox. But yeah, that's like another cute story. And yeah, I also ended up working with the Paperheads team for a bit. So just like so much comes out of a single account, and it's just very exciting and so promising to see that there's so much of collaboration, so much of creativity out there, and you can be a part of it. And the last picture is basically a contribution that was sent in by my friend, who was basically this is something that is like probably me overthinking, but I think it's very interesting because like my friend who's based in the US, visited India uh, for 10 days, and she wasn't aware of like Indian matchboxes, right? But she came across Art in a Box and then started thinking more about it. And then when she went to Jaipur, she found this in a random shop. And it's just like very interesting to think how people who weren't even aware of the concept of like Indian matchboxes or just like art on matchboxes have started giving it a thought, and sent this to me. So I posted this in the account, and I love it when like people send me pictures of matchboxes. You can also check out the story highlights because taken many contributions there, and there's so many boxes out there that I don't have access to, but people spot all these amazing matchboxes. So keep sending so that I can just like keep building on that. But this is how I think I've defined collaboration, just through like one simple Instagram account. And I personally believe in passion projects and just side projects, and just like so much has come out of it, and such good collaborations. So yeah, that's just like Art in a Box, and like connecting with the community, building a community, and just like collaborating with so many creators out there. That's been a lot of fun. So yeah, that's me. That's Art in a Box. I hope you enjoyed the quick and brief session. The third picture on the right is something that I always share because I feel like everyone always needs to hear this, and I think all of us need to hear this right now. But yeah, that's me, and that's the end of my presentation.
Thank you so much, Shreya. So now, before we start with the question and answer, I actually wanted to ask you a question specifically about Indian matchboxes. So a lot of what I was seeing and what I heard is, there's a huge community of people that are sharing these matchboxes with one another. Right now in the contemporary time, do you think the circulation or design of matchboxes has reduced? Or is it a lot of archival kind of findings and not so many newly manufactured matchboxes?
In terms of like the new sets of designs that are being produced, like
something that's contemporary, because a lot of what you're talking about is history, gender, we're chasing a lot of archival concepts and theories. So in terms of nowadays, you see more design houses picking up Matchbox art and designing matchboxes. So do you think in terms of, say, karigars and brands, has that reduced, or had you increased?
Yeah. So again, I do not know how the, like previously, I think like when the factories were set up, you had designers actually illustrating them. Gradually, you started getting like, printing like shops and like just like machines which could, which did the job for you. Now you just have like designers using computer graphics or just using softwares to do the same thing. And again, like you mentioned, I think there are many like agencies out there, just like fun agencies that even I've connected with on Instagram, who are creating these fun matchbox graphics for like pubs and brands. So I feel like that's like a slow growing trend, or probably like certain brands and organizations would just feel that, oh, why don't we create like a fun matchbox for ourselves. So that I feel like that's like a slow trend that's slowly building. But I mean, I wouldn't want to make a statement out there because I do feel like I don't want to sound uninformed, but I don't think we have many illustrators out there anymore. Like I showed you this label, like this has been hand drawn, right? This has been hand drawn. In my research or from like the limited interactions that I've had, I don't know of any illustrators who actually like hand draw labels anymore. So that's definitely something that we should be looking at in terms of archiving. And I think that's also like one of the efforts that I would personally want to work with, because again, this is valuable and I wouldn't want to archive it or store it or curate it in this form, because this is valuable, right, and tells us so much about like the previous times. So I think more efforts need to be put on that end. But yeah, I think I don't know of any illustrators anymore. It's all machine drawn and like soft.
Okay, so we can start taking the questions. The first question is by Shruti, and she says, "Hello, Shreya. Thank you so much for showing us your amazing collection. A question: how do you think matchboxes can be included in the history or art history curriculum in Indian institutions? Would it be a valuable addition or a redundant?"
Interesting question. I mean, I think even when I was presenting the research at college, I was very vocal about, obviously, because like if you spend 1 year just researching that, you are like, matchboxes, like you need to give more value to them. But definitely, in fact, I think it should probably, be made a part of a curriculum, art curriculum, because if you have calendar art as a concept was, so calendar art is actually a concept which has been defined by several theorists and sociologists, but it basically refers to a mass production. So again, there's like a lot more theory to it, and calendar art can usually be seen on matchboxes, on like on ads, or like on calendars, like the old calendars that you might have spotted in your grandparents' house or just anywhere, like even in the shop. So all that is a form of calendar art, and I definitely think matchboxes should be made a part of that calendar art, and calendar art needs to be made a part of the curriculum, because it just tells us so much about our history and how art has actually evolved. Because it started off with Raja Ravi Verma, and he's so important for us in the Indian art scene, and this basically stems from there. So definitely, I mean, even a one label I showed you tells you about like a lungi brand. You can imagine the number of possibilities that are out there. And yeah, I think more efforts need to be put in that place.
Okay, there's one question by Arya who's just jumped to the point. He says, "Hi Shreya, is your dissertation available to read somewhere?"
It's not as yet, but like I said, I'm trying to synthesize it, condense it, and I'm going to put it out in parts because I'm working on a website. It should be out in the next 30 days. But I'll be making a post of it, about it on Instagram, and I'll be basically dissecting the dissertation, dividing the dissertation into different themes, into different blog posts. So you can have access to all that material over there.
Okay, and Arya, we've dropped Shreya's Instagram account on our chat box, so you can definitely check that out. It's also for the rest of the attendees to view any of the posts that she spoke about during the talk. You have Prashant says, what is your process? What is your process of creating artwork on matchboxes? Why do you choose matchboxes only?
Okay, so I don't create the artwork on these matchboxes. I pick up the boxes that I literally found on in roads or in shops, and just post those boxes. So the idea behind Art in a Box was to deconstruct the symbols and icons on these boxes. I haven't created any of the artworks, and I also don't have the design skills for that. It's probably something that I want to work on. But yeah, I've collaborated with designers who have created artworks for matchboxes. And just to give you like a brief idea into it, they would obviously be better when it comes to commenting on their process. But from what I've noticed, when I collaborated, what really helped was like a mix of research. So all the research. So like if there's a symbol on the, sorry, if there's like a lotus symbol on the box, why is there like a lotus symbol on the box? Is it because probably the designer who was designing it, relates it to one political party? Or is it because he or she was taught that it is the national flower of India? And even if it is the national flower of India, then what is it symbolic of? So I think it's a mix of research, and it's also just looking at the previous set of designs that have existed in the market and creating your own interpretation of it. Because even in the poster that I shared, the Indianama poster, when we were trying to define the identity of every state, so the idea in the Indianama poster was to redefine the identity of each and every state in India. Because what we noticed was that many of the states in Northeast did not even, like, I couldn't find any symbol which was even symbolic to like a few characteristics that define the Northeastern states. So we went around actually researching so much into Northeast because we wanted to make sure that we had like an informed perspective and a well-researched perspective. You can check out the poster again if you wish to, and like write into me if you want to know more. But yeah, I think it's a lot of research, questioning the research, and then looking back at the previous set of examples that are being sent out into the market, and then making your own art.
This is actually a fun fact by Chetty, who says Wimco Limited was established in the year 1923 in the name of Western India Match Company. It is an affiliated concern of the Swedish Matchbox AB Wimco Limited. So basically, it's a Swedish company who is still running a monopoly in the Indian matchbox market.
Yeah. So they had established in the 1920s. Wasn't really sure if it was 1923. But yeah, I also had like these few vintage labels of just like oh yeah, I found it right here. I'll show it to you here. I don't have any from my contemporary collection, but this one over here,
Okay,
it's pretty old. So yeah, Western Indian Match Company, but Swedish folks basically who established their presence in India and then took in Indian labor to produce matchboxes for all the wars and also for themselves.
Okay, we'll take one more question before we start the show and tell. So we do hope all of y'all have some matchboxes handy, and then y'all can raise your hands and we will spotlight your video. This is more, so there are two questions, which is about commercialization and pricing. So Bhavisha says, do you think it has become more commercialized these days? And we have one question that, just a second. Okay, about, I think it's, I saw it, but it's not here anymore. Okay, we'll just answer the question about, do you think it's become more commercialized? Oh, okay, here it is. It's by Bhavisha as well. I'm so sorry.
No.
So she says, I have also heard that some people trade their vintage collection for bomb prices. Did you come across something like this?
Yes. No, I want to answer that question so bad because I feel like I get bombarded with these questions on Instagram. But just to answer the first question, it's definitely become a lot more commercial. Because see, initially these labels were hand-drawn, but now you have like access to software, and literally even you can make like a matchbox design. In India, like matchboxes are still used on a daily basis. They are used in temples, they're used at home, in your kitchens, they are used outside. If you go to the panwala, you're going to get it over there. So it's definitely become a lot more commercial, and that's also probably one of the reasons, like I showed you, you have like a kingfisher on top, or you have like an apple over there, or you have a chota beam over there, because you have the access to software. So you are going to modify those designs as much as you want to, and if you have the resources to produce these matchboxes, and if the demand is increasing, then it is going to become more commercial. I don't have the exact statistics on if it has increased as compared to just lighters, but I do know for a fact that if you actually compare it with the US, you'd find like lighters on the road just thrown, but you wouldn't find matchboxes there. So I think it's very like country specific, but over the years it's definitely become more commercial because of like machines and then softwares and etc. And I think with respect to your second question, so trading is a very common practice. There are many matchbox collectors out there and who actively trade. And again, as a beginner or probably even as a collector, if you just want to get an idea, you can do like a random search on eBay or even Etsy for that matter, and you'll find like expensive matchboxes and labels. I have been asked if I want to trade or exchange because it is a very common practice among collectors. But I personally am not a very big fan of it because I am not very fond of quantity as a concept. So I get a kick out of just like studying these matchboxes. So I'm more driven towards like the quality or the qualitative aspect to it. But yeah, it is a very common practice. There are a few very legit, like very active groups out there who trade labels. So if Bhavisha is interested in knowing more about them, just let me know and I'll connect you to those groups. And I've been very like I've been actively talking to those collectors, but it's just that I'm not very fond of trading. Yeah.
Okay, so we can start the show and tell session. I know people from our team definitely have their matchboxes with them. While everybody is going to start the session, we will also share a poll which will go live. So you all can indulge yourself in answering some questions for us. Okay, so let's start. Whoever has the matchboxes with them, would you like to raise your hand so we can spotlight your video? 1 second. Please don't be shy. I'm sure everybody has the matchboxes at home that you all can bring. 1 second. Okay, if everybody's shy, I'm just going to start pulling up our team to share the matchboxes.
I got 3 of them. I can show you mine if you want.
Yeah, I would like to do that.
I can start
What?
off. Like I already showed you the matchboxes that I have, but I have Maza. And I don't even have a copy of this. So yeah.
Oh, that's quite nice actually. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go and okay, we have Surbhi. Thank you so much, Surbhi. We will definitely pull up your video. Urvaksh, can you pull up Surbhi's video, please?
Yeah, she's just rejoining as a
Okay.
panelist.
Hi.
Hi, Surbhi.
1 second. Yeah, I don't think your video is coming.
Just a minute.
Okay, perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I have 2 of them. One of them is this one. Can you see that?
Oh,
I think it says
fine.
1
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It says 1. I think it's because it's like for ₹1.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why. Yeah.
Can you put it up? Yeah, perfect.
It's something I found on the street. I'm recently like into collecting matchboxes, so I just like pick up whenever I see a matchbox somewhere. And then I have this one. It says,
Oh, yeah. Tiger.
yeah.
I own this one. Yeah.
Can you tell us
Yeah, so-
where you had collected the matchboxes from? Did you go to any place?
So I live in Bangalore and I was going for a walk around my area and I was just like found it on the floor. Yeah. Not like a really great story to it, but I guess.
Interesting enough. It's fine.
That's the way to go. I mean, I've got like so many weird looks, but I'm just immune to them. So I think you should start doing that too.
Perfect. Okay. We will also have Tabitha Percy and Manika from our team who will also share their matchboxes. Hi, Manika.
So I have this one.
So this is actually really interesting because we got a comment from Chaiti also saying Ship is the most popular and most trusted Wimco that we find.
Yeah.
So you can see that Manika has the exact same one.
Yeah, I just found it in an ashtray at home. Hi.
I think that is one of the most common ones that I have seen.
Most common one.
Yeah.
I
Okay,
also came across this collection once which had the P replaced with a T. I really want to own that matchbox, but I don't have it as yet. Probably one day in life, I hope to have it.
That's funny. Maybe you can ask one of your designer friends to start a collaboration where you'll
Yeah.
design these. Okay, Tabitha, thank you so much. Would you like to show us your matchbox?
Yes, I have this. I found this on the street.
Oh, that's
So cool.
It has someone's face on it. And
Yeah.
it says Sai Baba in Telugu.
Yeah.
oh, lovely.
And the best part is there's a small drawing on the back.
BD.
It's
Yeah.
hand drawn, definitely.
Oh, wow.
That's
think
so
they-
cool.
It's a brand of the BD who sells the Matchbox too. So
Yeah.
it's a set.
Oh.
I found this on the street and I thought it was very cool.
That's quite interesting. I don't think
That's very cool. You said you found this in Hyderabad?
Yes.
Very cool. I haven't seen anything like this before. And
Thank
that's
you.
not Sai Baba, right? Which is what I think is so, which is fun.
No.
Because like you'll find
No, it's
boxes
not.
with like typos on them, but this is like visual typo, literally. So I
No,
think
I think it's the person who made it and behind it, there's actual Sai Baba though.
Oh, there is?
There is. Here there is. I'm sorry.
That's fine, no worry.
But
okay.
Behind, but I think he's the man who manufactures it or something to do with like the ancestor, something to do with that. Probably.
Or the factory owner. Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought I like the color. I thought it just caught my eye on the street and I picked it up.
It's a collector's edition, in my opinion. You should keep it.
Yeah, I am collecting.
Oh, so I'm so sorry. We're just going to pull up Bhavisha. You can definitely continue. You can continue.
Yeah, so I find it interesting how like big hotel brands are like hopping on this trend of making customized matchboxes with like cute like captions on it. I have a lot of that with like really vintage. I'm sorry, I'm at work right now. I could only bring one.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, so I found these like KS bakeries or like park hotels have like Spark, but like parks, fun and things like that.
Yeah,
it's interesting to see them try.
Interesting. I'm actually glad you're noticing this trend, and also for the future, if you want to keep a track of this trend, you'll see ITC makes many matchboxes. So I don't know how this works, but they probably have like a different theme, still actively producing matchboxes, and they have some very good designs on them.
Thank you so much, Tabitha. Okay, we'll just pull up Bhavisha and then.
Okay, yeah. So I have this one. I don't know if you can see. It is a coffee branding done on the matchbox. It is a very small illustration.
Yeah.
And there's a tree, like a coffee tree, I'm supposing, and a little boy standing there. And some, I don't know, like, I think this is some script, Indian script or something, what language it is, I don't know. And on the back, it just says, light your fire, lights your fire.
So cool.
Yeah.
These are some wild matchboxes that you people have found.
Yeah, and on the side, I think only one side has the lighting streak also. The other side doesn't have it. And then I have this another one, which is a Diwali matchbox, I'm assuming, because it has like a firecracker and Hanumanji on it.
Yeah. And it says Maruti.
Yeah, it says Maruti. Yeah,
which is another name for Hanuman. Yeah. Very cool. And there's so much of like detailing on this box.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Amazing.
Thank you.
We'll definitely ask all of you to put your video on so we can just take one picture, and we encourage you to share your. We also have Chaiti who's put up their hand. Maybe we can pull them up as the last attendee.
I also have one actually.
Okay.
This was from this is actually from the museum, the exhibition that was happening in Calcutta, Ghore Baire. And there is this, I don't know if you can see this, so let me turn off my background so that you can see this. Just a minute. Yeah. So this is one of the matches that was there. And it has this, it says made in Japan.
Yeah.
So it's actually made in Japan, and then they've taken like traditional and they exported it to India. So what's in the concept note, it was written that Western graphic mannerisms were harmoniously combined with traditional styles in Japan in the late 19th century. So a lot of Japanese industrialization thrived in the late island nation during the first quarter of the 20th century, and the matchbox or Mathi Bako was a major export distributor to all parts of the globe.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I thought it was quite cool that there are different styles adapted, and it was called Durga matches, so it was quite interesting.
Yeah, no, and like definitely, like I said, when the European folks actually, I mean, they had like access to like a lot of raw materials. Same time, even Japan started producing a lot. This was all, I think, during like 1920s and around those years. But I'm not surprised because, like, obviously, like labor is probably going to be used across countries, and so are resources. But that artwork is really pretty.
We can have Jyoti, you can put your video on right now. If you like.
I brought Surbi back as well. So if
Okay,
everybody,
perfect. Yeah, yeah. We'll just see Jyothi's and then we'll have a group picture with them. Yeah, yeah, we can
Oh,
see.
rockstar.
That's great.
Unmute. Yeah, am I audible?
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is called Rockstar, and I mean, I'm just like in a marriage function, and like I've named
Thank you so much for attending the workshop.
yeah, so it's called Rockstar. So I'm in Calcutta, and I also like been a phillumenist in the past 4 years or something. So I have found out many of these stars, like they have pop stars, rock stars, 3 stars, and superstars, and like I have almost like around 20 kind of stars who have, even there is baby star and shiny star, and there are so
Wow.
many different notions of stars. So I found this yesterday. I did not have rock stars, so this is a new addition to my thing. And Shreya, I really enjoyed your talk.
Thank
And one
you.
more thing, I have this information about the Japanese thing Niharika was talking about. So the Japanese immigrants actually came down in India, in around Calcutta around 1910. So those were the people who actually taught the art of manufacturing matchboxes to the people of Calcutta, and then they traveled to Shivakashi also. So
Okay.
that, I mean, those are the people who actually taught us the trade. So the Japanese are those people, and they kind of wanted to also gain monopoly over Austria and Sweden,
We did.
because that's why we have so many you know Indian characters and Japanese matchboxes, because they wanted to trade them in India, and they wanted to win over the Indian matchbox companies. So they have those motives over there. That's all I know about it.
That's really cool.
lovely.
Thank you
That's
for
cool.
sharing.
A lot more trivia.
Okay,
Thank you
we're
for
running a little late, so I'm gonna
Yeah,
ask
yeah, yeah.
everybody to put their matchboxes so we can take a picture. Surbi, Bhavisha, and Tabitha, y'all can
One sec.
graciously put your video. 1 second, we'll just wait for Tabitha. Can you hear us? Tabitha, can you hear us? You can put your video on. No? Okay, Urvashi, you can take this.
Done?
got it.
Yeah,
I got it. Yeah.
perfect. Thank you so much. I know. Oh, Tabitha's here. Okay, we'll just have a quick picture with you. 1 second. Super quick. Yeah.
All right, got it. Thanks.
Perfect. I know some of y'all are, we couldn't answer everybody's questions. We're so sorry. We are strapped for time. But thank you so much for joining us.